Okay, so we are back. So for part two of our questioning series, so we're going to continue on just from where we left off with design thinking. And the real point here is to not look back, but let's push forward and always iterate so that we're always changing, evolving, and that we're learning. So we're not looking back because we're not going that way. So even Michelangelo defined this at the age of 87 where he said, "I'm still learning." And that's the methodology that we're trying to preach both to our students, our staff, administration, you name it. Now, with coding, there's a strong acceptance by both teachers and students of failed solution attempts that recognizing early failure can often put you on the pathway to a successful outcome. And this is a great quote and utilized often in engineering design process as well. And that's what we're really trying to create here, and what Makey offers this tangible solution to this problem where students can become the creators of content and they get to actually really use and dig deep into things that are hands-on and tangible. So Seymour Papert always says, let's not avoid failure, but create a culture of embracing it. And we really want to embrace this first attempt in learning, or FAIL acronym, if you will, and push forward so that our students feel successful no matter what. So we're changing a mindset and adopting a growth mindset going forward. So I've mentioned this earlier, but that coding offers instant feedback with the ability to rectify and improve upon previous results. So sometimes this in the classroom landscape can be a problem because, as I'm sure most of you know, you're sitting there and a student gets a negative or a wrong, incorrect solution. They maybe get down on themselves. There's that like empathy and social emotional intelligence piece that comes into play. Whereas coding, these bugs come out all the time, and it's actually encouraged to try to improve solutions no matter what. Even if they are correct, sometimes there's more efficient answer. And oftentimes my students will come up to me and say, hey, Mr. T, like I found a way more efficient code than yours. And like they're so excited to do that, and they're really pumped about it. And this is something that happens in the real world all the time, and always looking for the most efficient solution that solves authentic and meaningful problems. So one of the things that people always reach out to is, what's the recommended way of introducing code to students? What would be the best way? And I often like to say that the best place to start is unplugged. And what I mean by unplugged is that having something that isn't relating to technology, that we're not just giving them Makeys or Spheros or whatever it may be in terms of hardware to get them started. We really want to put the emphasis on the thinking process and not the technology. Along with that, when you're starting out this way, it really fosters collaboration amongst the group and creates this idea that these answers aren't permanent and they're not fixed, and that this is an ever-evolving process that promotes higher order thinking amongst students, which is like the real aim that we're all trying to achieve anyways. So when we're talking about framework of pedagogy, so it's always pedagogy first with these examples. So when we're talking about like TPAC models and SAMR models that we're really pushing. Now this was part of a study that is now published by University of Waterloo. And we're looking at the 4 pedagogical experiences. And if you notice, it starts from unplugged, goes up towards tinkering, making, and then remixing. So when you start at unplugged, these start at the lowest threshold in terms of higher order thinking skills. So your unplugged activities would be something with no tech again, just like pictures I had on the previous slide, where you're having students mimic what it would be like to code. So for example, what that would look like if you have 2 students and one's pretending to be a robot, and you say to one student, please take 1 step forward, then take 1 step left, take another 1 step forward, another step right. That is an unplugged activity that's replicating the coding process. When we move up into tinkering, we move to another higher order step, where this is something where we're starting to dabble in these maker STEM start challenges. It might consist of some unplugged and maybe just a little bit of like playing almost with some of the apparatus and technology, where they're just kind of exploring the initial stages of what it is. And when we move into making, we're usually creating something tangible in some capacity, whether it be a computer program, a video, a green screen project, you name it. And then lastly, the highest order thinking skill is when we remix something, where we take something that's already made and we adjust it. We make perfections on this, or make it something that's meaningful to us. So in Scratch, you can often take a computer program and remix it to make it your own, whether it be a story, a maze, a game, anything. And this is proven to be the highest amongst the higher order thinking skills within this framework. So this all supports a more constructivist theory of learning, where we are focused on more purposeful play, it's construction of knowledge, it's student-led and more personalized. And I think those are the big keys to point out, that we're moving away from our traditional classroom approach where it's the teacher at the front of the classroom simply issuing out content. We want our students to be creators of content and learn through doing. And really what's exciting about that is that this actually supports vertical non-permanent surfaces in classes. Now, traditionally, this research now is being done in math classrooms. And what they're finding is that when everything else is equal, but you simply sub a piece of paper for a whiteboard that is vertical, that students are more likely to put down answers and solutions to problems than if there's a piece of paper. So let me walk you through this example. So you're in your math class, you're teaching a math class. What you would find is that if you offer one problem in the traditional way and you tell every student to answer it with a piece of paper and a pencil, you're going to find that a couple of the students just won't do it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Some might be that they just are not familiar with the content. Others just may have that fear of failure, that they don't want to take the risk because their solution seems permanent and they don't want to be ridiculed or feel bad for not knowing it. Now, what's really interesting on this is when they ask the exact same question to the same group of students, but had a whiteboard in front of them, students were 3 times as likely to actually write something down. And the reason for that is because if their answer is wrong, it's not permanent. They simply can erase it with their dry erase marker. So what's being done with these vertical non-permanent surfaces is that students are actually standing and working in groups collaboratively, and whoever has the pen cannot be the person who is speaking. So what this does is it promotes the whole group dynamic of working together and collaborating to create a desired outcome. So now they're really hearing the thinking process. You can actually draw attachment to computational thinking, design thinking of what it really works for, and why it's beneficial, which is really exciting. So again, where to start? The earlier the onset, the better. And so why use Makey at all is because when we actually do, there's a better chance that some of these people, especially in relation to girls, will go into a STEM platform as a future endeavor, because if they aren't exposed early, they feel that this is something that isn't possible. So one of the important stats for me is that of the 22 executive engineering research chairs in Canada, only 1 is female. And this is something that really has to change in terms of gender equity going forward. So what makes up CT? So these are everyday examples just so you can see of what really it looks like. So decomposition. So we do decomposition every day just as individuals, so without even really realize we're doing them. So one of the everyday examples of decomposing that we do in decomposition is something like brushing our teeth. So how we would actually go about it without even realizing that really what decomposition means is we're breaking problems down into smaller segments that are more manageable. So an everyday example along with brushing your teeth is how you just wake up and get to work in the morning. So from a grand scheme of things, it would just seem easy and we take it for granted. Oh yeah, we just get up and get there. But there's a lot of steps involved in that process. You have to wake up first, get out of bed, brush your teeth, shower, make your breakfast. And the order may change, but the problem remains the same, is that we're breaking all these problems down. Now on the right of your screen, you can actually see in Scratch a program where students have created a pyramid, and they're designing a program to calculate the surface area of this pyramid and volume of the pyramid, which is really interesting. But that gets to more the complex side, and that's what it looks like more in the classroom landscape. But I wanted to provide that everyday example as well, so we're all on the same page. So when we're talking about some of these things with CT and design thinking, the goal of education isn't to create sophisticated tasks. It's to empower our students to do what they want to do while supporting pedagogy and 21st century education. So these are just a couple examples of things that have been done where students were designing using sustainable materials their own Sphero maze, and they taught actually younger students how to program and code, which was pretty awesome. And the bottom right-hand corner, you see a picture of a city there where everything has a mathematical explanation to. So they've calculated every single shape within that city, both the volume and surface area, and there was an allotted cost to that. So really where we're moving to with things like Makey and these 21st century STEM-based educational hardware platforms is less us, more them from Papert. And this is just a really great analogy, and he uses a great quote of showing what this is and what it looks like for students today, is if we really wanted to teach our students baseball, would we have them put out a piece of paper and define what first base, second base, third base, fourth, and like home is? Or would we simply let them play and learn by playing? And this is the same approach he wants teachers to utilize in our changing classroom environment today. So as we move forward, we get into something called abstraction. And abstraction is where can the student hide or remove unnecessary information. So here you see a picture of a hand, and you tell them that there's 8 coins in total. How many coins would be under the hand? So can we hide or change information, and can they respond to it? We don't really need that. Scratch is just a way of using it. And iterative thinking. So is the student comfortable adapting the plan in response to new or varying information if we change it? And here's just a couple of examples of what this looks like in the classroom, making a cash register solution. So what we had here is students would come in and they would change the amount of money that they actually put in. So they would have to adjust each and every time a new student came up to them, placing a different value in their program. So they created a program that would adjust to this different thinking. We then move into debugging. So can students create a plan for dealing with issues? Because issues are going to come up along the way. And this is where you can really get into that social emotional intelligence point of things, which is really exciting of where we can go. And then we get into some integration points that these can be cross-curricular in nature. We can do a whole different variety of activities that will really excite students going forward and create a lot stronger curricular connections for all of us. I think this is it for the end of video 2. So thank you for watching. And again, if there are any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Thanks, everyone.